Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. We sincerely hope that you are doing well today. How will you grow your business? Walt Disney is quoted to have said, "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." Just Minding My Business Media, LLC is about the doing. Become known for your products or services on JMB Radio podcast, heard in over 200 countries. Or if you're ready to take the leap, move to Mindset Movers TV as a host or series producer, broadcasting to the combined audience of Roku and Fire TV. Let's move in the right direction together. Contact us at jmbradio@gmail.com. Communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of your life. Brian Tracy. Today we welcome Jim Rowe, who is an author and a marketing veteran. He began his career in market research and over 45 years has held client and agency positions, including brand manager for Coke, vice president of marketing for Cutty Shark, president of Promotion and InterMark Divisions, Saatchi Howard Marlboro Group, plus 30 years as an owner of Manhattan Marketing Ensemble, then known as Jim Rowe Marketing. In his various positions, Jim saw weak problem-solving and communication skills among recent grads. His observation was backed by multiple high-level studies. Not only did graduates lack problem-solving skills, many could not write. This skills gap led Jim to create a series of books to address the problem. Get Your Ducks in a Row, Books 1 and 2. He is here to tell us about a problem to which he has created a solution. Welcome, Jim.
Why, thank you.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. And oh my God, that is a problem. And it starts at the high school level. I've been in many committees working with high school students for soft skills because they don't have it.
Oh, you're touching my nerve. You're 100% right. In fact, there was a study back in 2011, the national report card, nation's report card, and on writing, they rate on a 4-point scale, and the percent that were viewed as not proficient were 73% of the 8th graders, 73% as the high school students, and then when they become freshmen, it goes down to 60% by seniors, but you still have 40% not being viewed as proficient. It's really scary.
Wow, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. So we're moving college students through with poor communication skills.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of view it as a 3-part problem. I mean, you mentioned in the upfront there that there's all these studies that indicate it's anywhere between 50 and 75% of the of college graduates, recent grads that have just gotten employed, and the managers are rating them 50 to 75% of them say that they can't critically think to solve problems or communicate well, particularly in writing. And the crazy thing is that the students themselves, 80% of the students feel that they're proficient. So you got this, what they refer to as this big skills gap, the perception of the students versus the reality of the managers. And none of the solutions are working.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. And unfortunately, the impact has gotten so big. It's like, I think $400 billion has been attributed to losses in corporations in the course of a year due to poor communication. And think of, if that's just the money because they make mistakes and all this other stuff, but think of what happens when communication is bad. You've got the stress, the morale goes low, all the people impact issues manage, the reputation of people goes down. And so now what's happening is corporations are spending $3 billion to train college graduates who've spent certainly tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get through school. And they're coming out, as you said, Ida, with lacking the two most important skills, which are the soft skills of critical thinking and communication.
Go ahead, Ida.
Go ahead, Ruth. I'm just in awe.
Yes, it's very striking and upsetting. And I know I had an experience years ago where I was working with an intern who was getting ready to graduate from college, and she had no communication skills. She had no ability to write a simple sentence, and that was part of what she was hired to do. And to hear that it's become worse, that no one has caught on to it and stepped up to the plate and said something is alarming.
Well, the phrase, just by the way you just said that, the nobody's caught on to it. I spent the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years maybe, like digging for research on this. And to me, I found some things, but it's taken a long time. This is a problem that if you talk to a manager, they say to you, oh yeah, they're awful. But it's kind of under the radar, right? You don't hear about this as a major problem. And so I kind of view this as something that, to me, there was an opportunity to try and do something. And I think the biggest problem is where we're not teaching them, and I'm not an educator, and I'm not down on educators or the school system, but I think we seem to have jumped over trying to problem solve and communicate, but we're not teaching them to think. We're not teaching them how to go about the process of thinking, number one. And number two, I've used the phrase for a long time now, to write is to think. And, reading, everybody, we all agree that we should read, but reading is kind of passive. All the hard work has been done. But if you write, that's where the rubber meets the road. That forces you to get your thoughts down on a piece of paper. And, and it takes work. It's hard work. You write it down and you go, no, that's not right. So to me, and they don't get enough practice. There's 50% of college graduates have said that they spent less than 5 courses in the course of 4 years that had 20 pages of writing. I mean, so everything is multiple choice, quick answers, memorize, not think.
Yes, you're so right.
That's amazing.
You're
that
so
is just flabbergasting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really
that used
disappointing.
To be the thing that, we had to do was we had to learn how to write. We had composition classes.
Exactly.
In every class that we had, whether it was, what do they call it, world events, whatever, history, English, you had composition. And that was a big part of your grade.
I think that's the problem. I think we're jumping over writing. And we're thinking and writing. And the two of them are core. And so I guess I looked at it and said, there's, and by the way, those are the 2 top skills that business managers want. They would rather get those skills and a liberal arts major who could do those 2 things well than somebody with the harder skills. And it's not necessarily the university's fault, because the managers are saying we need people who can code, we need people who can do the Microsoft suite. They're putting the pressure on the education system to get this. And then they got it and they say, well, yeah, but wait a minute, you forgot to tell them how to teach and think. I mean, think and write.
Yeah. Years ago, I met someone, and he was a teacher, and at the school, it was actually a seminary. They had a course in thinking. And I asked him, because I was working for another organization in the same building, and I asked him, why do you have a course on thinking? And he said very bluntly, because most people don't know how to think. And I didn't appreciate that until years later, that many people do not have the ability to do critical thinking.
That's exactly right. And I think one of the great things that my dad did when he said get into marketing was the whole process of marketing. When I first met somebody, I'll talk about her in a second, she said to me, marketing is a disciplined approach to problem solving. And,
Hmm.
the writing is so important to that process. In fact, the title of my book is, as you mentioned, Get Your Ducks in a Row, and it's a fable. It is. I don't know, it was inspired by Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know whether you're familiar with that book.
Yes.
And so I remember reading that 20 years ago, thinking this is great. I loved it because it was one core thought. And as I've been watching this thing over the years, I thought to myself, the problem. And I trained a lot of young people. Every year we hired kids right out of college to be account people, and you needed them to hit the ground running. And what I found is, even though they were smart, and they had good grades, and they had good internships, they'd sit down and they weren't really able to quickly communicate to me and structure something. The beauty of marketing is it forces you to get your thoughts down, or get your ducks in a row, so to speak, into, can you boil this all down to one page, and 10 steps? Why are we here? Who's the audience? What do they know? What's the background? What are the issues? What are the problems we're trying to solve? Now, okay, this is what we want to solve. Those are the objectives. How are we going to do it with the strategy? And what supports that strategy? You have something that says I should spend millions of dollars. So it's just a very simple. At the end of the day, I could have made this a tweet or a blog post, but it would just come and go in the internet or wherever it is. But to me, there was this point that, having trained so many of these young people, I thought this is so simple. And I've had some people say it's, because frankly, it's a fable about ducks in business. And my first boss her name was Connie Humphrey. She was my mentor, first boss in marketing. And we still stay in touch. And in fact, I wrote the book, and then I called her and said, I would like you to be the star of my book. So her name in the book is Connie Duck, and instead of Connie Humphrey. And she was, flattered, but she was also, she taught me how to do this, and I've been training people for years, so I know it works. And some people have said to me, that's kind of a simplistic looking at it. And I said, yeah, but isn't that the point? We're trying to train people, and if I can give them 10 steps and they can fill in the blanks and it forces them to think, to me, that's gold. That's what real teaching is all about.
Absolutely. So how do people get the book? Because this book is needed everywhere.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm self-publishing, which is an experience in and of itself, on Amazon. And, when I first wrote the book, I named it Get Your Ducks in a Row, ROW. And I started it back in 2005, 2006, long story. But I started it up again. And within the last year, I couldn't get the URL because there's so many books with that talk about organization and finance, about getting your ducks in a row. And one day I was trying to get the URL. I said, why don't I use my last name? And so it's Get Your Ducks in a Row with an E on the end. And it's just only been a couple of weeks on. So you get it on Amazon. And if you type in Get Your Ducks in a Row and then put in the name Jim Rowe, ROWE, then it comes up.
Oh, okay. All right. Because
I'm trying to get this out there.
Because it's so funny. When my kid was little, his punishment was to write me an essay.
I love it.
On why what he did was wrong.
Oh, good for you.
And what he had to do to straighten that out. That was how we did punishment. You had to write.
Oh, so he must be good then. He must be good at it by now.
Oh yeah, he's a good writer.
Yeah, that's great. And the beauty of things like this is if you tell a story. I've ordered and read the top 6 selling business writing books, and they're all very, very smart people, great points. But quite honestly, they're 200 pages, and at the end, it's like they're really geared towards people who already know how to do it, and they're looking to refine their thinking. But these are more senior executive type books. They're not simple stories that gets the point across. I think people learn better via a story. You read it, you can retain it, remember it, you can replicate it, and it generates results. So I know that works. So to me, it's a practical teaching tool. So interestingly, I'm targeting corporate executives, not necessarily the end users. I'm trying to get corporations to buy multiple copies for their team.
Yes, and probably we might want to start in college, business majors.
Yep.
Well, I have two targets: CEOs and the college business administration departments, and trying to get them to do it. Because frankly, it's each book is only about 100 pages or a little bit more. So if they started their freshman year of college, first thing you need to do is read these two books, and you get a perspective. The second book really was just the appendix, and then I kept adding to it. So I created a second book behind it because I had all these tips and tools I wanted. I've been doing this a long time. I had a lot to say. So I came up with a concept that tried to talk about the whole problem-solving process. And I call it the adapter method. And it's an acronym, and it stands for analyze, deduce, author, perform, tackle, evaluate, and refine. And so those are the chapters. And each one I talk to them about how to do it. So that book will be ready in April.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I think the combination of the two of them, and I think it helps me in life. I think if you learn how to think, not everything is business, but you can start thinking through problems in life and how to go about it. You're in an organization, you're dealing with people. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I want to mention is that I feel so much that I want to help people. I found this organization called the National Writers Project. They're out.
Yes, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, and it's nwp.org. And they're this great organization that's been around, I think, around 20 years. I forgot all the details, but I've been working with them for 2 years. And it's an organization, in summary, it's teachers teaching teachers to teach writing. And they meet in the summer. I think they're on 189 college campuses. And they get together and they talk about the kind of things that we need to do to get people. It's specifically about writing. And they have a chart, it's in my book. They have a chart that's showing that they're actually the kids that go through these sessions that have been taught by teachers like this are doing better writing than those who don't. So you don't make a lot of money in a book, so I'm giving $1 for every book sold.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yes, but
Congratulations.
we need this because, it really ain't about the money. It's about making sure that the generation behind us has the tools.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're going to be dependent on them to take care of us.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
If they can't write,
That's
they
scary.
can't think. Oh, my God.
Well, when you're in your own little world, like I can be sometimes, I start thinking this is a national crisis. But of course, we've got a lot of those. But there's so many big things. But if we could, I'm a big believer in trying to impact numbers. That's what I have to do as a marketer. So I always tell people, if you're going to set an objective, have a numerical metric that you can measure against. But if we can start lowering those numbers, that the proficiency about managers thinking they're not doing so poorly, I think everybody will be better off. The people, the corporations, the country. So
it's going to trickle down everywhere. Relationships, family.
Yep.
Because communication is important throughout your life.
You can't talk about it.
You can't live in this world without it. And if you want the right results, you need to know how to communicate.
Yeah.
On that note, I want to ask you, Jim, how do you see, and this is kind of an obvious question answer, but how do you see the technology that we have now, all the little gadgets, our cell phones? Most of the time you see young people and older ones with their faces buried in their cell phones. How is that affecting critical thinking? And certainly there's no need to write. So how is that affecting these two skills that are so needed?
Everybody asks me that question. So I think that's a great question. And I think to a certain degree, it's negatively impacted our ability to think, right? Because we move so fast now that writing and thinking and particularly writing and communicating, has been this very casual thing. We fire out a text and, typos, please excuse my typos. Well, so we all do it. And, for everybody joking around, family and friends, that's one thing. But when you get in business, that's the problem. They're coming up and they're getting out in business and they're typing a paragraph real quick, like they would if it was a text or a quick email to somebody. When I have an important topic to send to a client in an email, I sometimes use the get your ducks in a row format, and I just lay it out so that, it makes me think about it the right way. I remember a young woman coming to me one day, and we were trying to send something over, and she handed me a paragraph, and I looked up at her and I said, I don't understand. What does this mean? And she goes, I see what you're saying. Well, yeah, but you've been here a year. You can't send something like this to a client. So I think it's just become too casual. And none of all these courses and all the tests you're taking is about memorization and clicking the multiple choice question. We're not helping them out by the time they get to this.
No, we're not. I'm so glad I grew up in the era I grew up in.
Yeah, me too. I can remember doing my one teacher. Our entire exam was multiple. We had like 10 multiple questions, multiple choice or fill in the blanks. That was worth 10 points. The rest of it was all essay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All essay.
And
you know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think most kids know what an essay is.
Right.
If you ask them to write an essay on their favorite book, you might get 2 sentences if you're lucky. Remember book reports?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I wasn't necessarily very good at them, and I didn't like it. But boy, I tell you something, when I met Connie Humphrey, if I didn't do it right, I'd be in trouble. So she was my ticket to moving forward. So I had to do it. The other thing too is there's this great biographer and historian who writes a lot of books. His name, I don't know if you've heard of him, David McCullough. And because I've always used this phrase to write thing, I went looking for somebody who's more famous than me to put a quote in the beginning of the book. And I found a quote from him, and he said, "Thinking is writing. That's why it's so hard." Yeah. And it's just, of course, it's brilliant. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and my cousin-in-law at a wedding, and she said to me, "Have you ever heard David McCullough?" I said, "He's in the front of my second book." And she said she saw him at an event. They asked him, he's so famous that people asked him, "Okay, how many people, you do all this research on these books that you write. How much of your time is spent researching these topics, and how much of your time is spent writing?" And his response will blow your mind. His comment was, "It's funny. Nobody ever asks me how much time I spend thinking." And we just need to get back to that. I was fortunate. One, my dad was real smart. He was a valedictorian at St. John's, and he went to Brooklyn Tech. And I said, "Why do you love Brooklyn Tech so much?" He goes, "Because they taught me to think." And then he sent us to all Catholic schools, and they're pretty, predominant on making sure you're right. Sister Mary, whatever, we're hitting with the ruler. And then I went to Fairfield University. It's a Jesuit school. I mean, they would kill you. I mean, we were writing all the time. And I remember there was a Jesuit priest there his title, we called him C.D. Burns, because nobody ever got anything but a C or a D from him.
Sometimes those are your best teachers, the ones that were really tough on you. It was difficult, and some teachers were more difficult than others.
Oh, yeah. Some don't play. Those are the ones that are passionate. Yes, Ruth. I remember them hard teachers, and it's so funny. The teachers that really made you work, I don't care how old you get, you cannot forget their names.
Oh, absolutely.
They're the ones who really molded you. When you look back, you have a lot of gratitude.
And that goes true for, bosses too. A lot of the guys and people I worked with in the early years came out of Procter and Gamble, and these guys were tough, and they were smart, and they'd really drill you on, you'd walk into a room, and I remember sitting there being sort of I was, once I finally got onto the client side, an old CEO of mine hired my agency. And it was a 2-hour meeting, and I sat there, and the whole team was there. And those were in the days before PowerPoint. We had a three ring binder we were going through, and it was like, it was about 2 inches thick. And he asked me about every single thing. And when it was over, I was exhausted. But I had my act together. I had my ducks in a row, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. But I am just so grateful to you that you took the time to address this issue, because it is a true issue.
And I don't think it's being reported enough. So I'm hopeful that my book can help people. And
I'm hopeful too, because we're gonna put it out there. That's for sure.
well, I appreciate it, and it's really such a simple read. You know, with the first book within an hour and 5 minutes you'll be finished, and you'll be able to walk away with something. And the other one takes maybe an hour and 15 or 20. So it's a good read. So I'm working on trying to take it to the next level, and I'm so thankful to have you guys have me on. This is the first time I've ever done this.
Oh, well, you did awesome. Did awesome.
Did very, very well.
Very well. I mean, because we're just talking and everything is just so relevant, what you're talking about. And as soon as I read your bio, I was like, oh my God, he is so right.
Yeah. So now we got to figure out a way to get the children to do it. You know.
Well, let's definitely stay in contact, because I'm involved with a lot of stuff with the high schools, junior high school level. And soft skills is lacking, and we got to catch it before it gets to college. We really do.
And I agree with that. We need to get it early. I'm thrilled that that's what your focus is, and you're picking up on it immediately. So that's great.
Yes. So if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do so?
The best way is my website. Go to jimrowemarketing.com, and I broke it into 2 sections. I do still do a little agency work. I have 1 client, and that's enough. At this point in my life, and I love it. It's a wonderful, live music streaming service we're about to launch, so that's fun. But my focus really for the rest of my business career is going to be getting this book out there and making it helping as many people as possible.
Yes, and we definitely appreciate you for that, because I actually had to, because the kids now, they talk with 2 letters. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I had to actually look up all of these different acronyms that they use in these texts, because I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
When they get ready to write something, they forget that that doesn't translate
exactly
into the business world or anywhere else. You need to use vocabulary. You need to use punctuation. So when it comes to separating their thoughts and creating a paragraph, they're lost.
Yeah, and I can't say I'm a grammarian, but I try and keep everything simple and keep it as short as possible. The thing that I found interesting is when I was writing, and I sent out the first Word document to a bunch of friends of mine and colleagues, and I was thinking at that time it was all about the writing, and 2 of them said almost exactly the same thing. She said, you're not even talking about teaching them to write. You're telling them how to think and how to structure their thought process. And if we can get them to that stage, then the beauty of the computer is if you're typing some of these things, it does tell you when, I wasn't a grammarian, but it does tell you. It's like if they underline this is spelled wrong. Before spell check, I was awful. So I've gotten better at it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so now you have support, but you have to know it first. You have to know, like we said, how to think.
And it's work. I have worked my tail off my whole life, and I don't want to send anything. It's a reflection on yourself.
Yes.
You want to send something over to the client, even a simple email. I read it several times, and sometimes.
Same here.
And if you talk to anybody who's been a writer, they'll say it's a process. You do the quote, the brain dump, and then you edit it. I start with a structure, but then you got to edit it down, make sure it's clear, and think about it.
I'm in the process. A chapter right now. I started writing it last night. I'm at the first paragraph, and I'm going to go back and look at it. I'm just going to brain dump. I know what I want to talk about, but I just need to get it formulated and make sure it's cohesive and it's clear when I'm trying to read about. So writing, you're right. It's like once you got to think about it.
Well, that's why I use the phrase "to write is to think."
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, we are so happy that you graced us tonight. This has been
ladies. I'm very, very pleased and privileged that you had me. So thank you.
Yes, and we will definitely be staying in touch with you. And when your next book comes out, please do reach out.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes.
We want to definitely keep you in the loop, and also maybe get this work into some of these high schools.
I'd love to do that.
Get this, because this is dear and near to my heart, because I can't stand people talking to me wrong. It's like, did you just hear what you just said? Did you think about that?
Yeah.
So we appreciate you, and we're definitely looking forward to more.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.